In the beginning, there was darkness, and then, bang, giving birth to an endless expanding existence of time, space, and matter. Now see further than we've ever imagined, beyond the limits of our existence, in a place we call the universe. In the distant corners of our solar system, ice giants Uranus and Neptune are violent worlds. Blanketed with smoky hazes, these outer planets are frenzied, turbulent, and unpredictable. Neptune claims the fastest winds in our solar system. Like an apparition, its great dark spot surfaces and vanishes without warning. Uranus's inner swarm of moons dash around the planet in less than a day, and collisions are unavoidable. The most controversial of the far-off planets isn't even a planet anymore. So why was Pluto demoted? The man who killed Pluto makes his case as we explore the outer planets. Meet the man who killed Pluto.
Pluto had it coming for a long time.
Caltech astronomer Mike Brown set in motion a chain of events that reduced the long-established number of planets in our solar system from 9 to just 8. Yet he feels no remorse.
There was no way that Pluto could survive its status as the single lonely ice ball, but it was gonna fall, and it certainly fell.
Among our planets, Pluto was long considered to be a bit different. Much smaller than the rest, it has the largest moon in proportion to its own size. It also has the most inclined and eccentric orbit.
Its orbit is sort of shaped like an egg. Pluto's orbit causes it to get significantly closer to the sun and then further away from the sun.
This cosmic needle in a haystack eluded planet hunters for decades. The 8th planet, Neptune, had been discovered in 1846, and astronomers at the turn of the century were convinced there was a 9th planet in the far reaches of our solar system.
The search for Pluto was started by Percival Lowell at Lowell Observatory. He thought there was a planet X there that was perturbing the orbits of Uranus and Neptune.
Before finding the elusive planet, Lowell passed away. But the observatory's research assistant, Clyde Tombaugh, continued his quest. In 1930, at the age of 24, Tombaugh captured an image of an object that seemed to validate Lowell's predictions. The discovery was announced to the world, and the object was given an official name, Pluto. But was Pluto Planet X? Some scientists argued that Pluto was far too small and didn't have enough mass to significantly perturb the orbits of its neighboring gas giants, Uranus and Neptune. Astronomers have since realized that there is no such Planet X. It had been predicted using inaccurate estimates of Neptune's mass. Even though Pluto wasn't Planet X, could it still be classified as a planet?
The first term for planet just meant wanderer in the sky. It was the things that moved relative to the stars. So to the ancient Greeks, the moon was a planet, the sun was a planet, the earth was not.
Of course, when we realized that the earth is actually going around the sun and that the moon is going around the earth, the definition of planet changed again. Earth became a planet, the sun and the moon were taken away, and there were finally 6. And over time, Uranus was discovered, and Neptune was discovered, so there were 7, there were 8.
Although it later proved to be smaller than our moon, Pluto was originally thought to be as large as Mars. So Tombaugh's discovery was anointed as planet number 9.
No one really thought much else about it. It was a strange object. It was sort of this lonely oddball at the edge of the solar system, but nothing else to call it, so it was called a planet.
Because of its great distance from the Sun, Pluto takes its name from the Roman god of the underworld. At its closest, Pluto is 2.7 billion miles from Earth. Its diameter is 1,485 miles, half the width of the United States. It takes 248 Earth years for Pluto to orbit the Sun. And a day on the planet is equivalent to about 6.5 Earth days. A 150-pound Earthling would weigh only 10 pounds on Pluto. It's a testament to modern technology that we know anything at all about the surface of Pluto.
We can hardly see this thing. Even with the Hubble Space Telescope, we get maybe 4 pixels across, maybe 12 pixels total. But even with that, we see that parts of Pluto are as dark as coal and parts of Pluto are as bright as snow.
Even from afar, scientists can measure the composition of the planet. They believe that the bright areas of the surface are made up of 3 types of ice.
Well, one is carbon monoxide, one is methane, which is the same as natural gas. And then the third is nitrogen, the same stuff that we have breathing here in our atmosphere.
The dark areas are probably solid rock.
The darker areas are almost certainly silicates of some sort. Silicates not unlike the rocks that we see here. That means there's silicon in them and there's oxygen in them. We're up here in Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. There's some snow around, there's some rocks around. This is similar to what we're going to see on the surface of Pluto.
A traveler to Pluto would find that despite the snowy surface, it is a very dim place.
About 30 or 40 times further away from the sun than the Earth is. This means that the sunlight hitting the surface of Pluto is about 1,000 times fainter than it is on the Earth. It's maybe about the same brightness as being outside under a dim street light at night. You could probably, you could take a book, you could probably read it there. Take a headlamp though, take a flashlight, it'd help out.
Its distance from the sun also makes Pluto one of the coldest places in the solar system, with a bone-chilling average temperature of -388 degrees Fahrenheit. And because of its small size and low density, gravity on Pluto's surface is far weaker than on Earth.
Now, some things are going to be a little easier to do on Pluto if you're really into rock climbing. I'm doing some vertical climbing here. Well, it's always exciting, but gravity is always the challenge.
Pluto's gravity is roughly 1/15 of the Earth's.
It's not like if you're standing on the surface, you would float away. Now, if you fell off that face when you were climbing up Pluto, you'd still want to have your rope there. You'd still accelerate down to the surface. So don't leave the rope at home.
Scientists would love to chip away at the surface of Pluto because hidden within its rocks is a whole missing chapter in the history of our solar system.
Pluto's a great planet. I mean, it's what I think is really great about it. It's sort of the ultimate time machine in our solar system. It really shows us what the environment of the solar system was like 4.5 billion years ago when it's formed. The surface there is much more ancient than you're going to find almost anywhere else in the solar system. And if you're looking for rock on the Earth has been around for that same time period, 4.5 billion years or so. But if you're looking for rock that's that old on the Earth, you're not going to find it. And that's because the Earth is sort of constantly recycling its material. You have plate tectonics going on that sucks all this material back into the mantle. You have volcanism going on that pumps out new material and processes the surface. So it's really a much younger surface on the Earth compared with the ancient surface that we're going to see on Pluto. The rocks that we're sitting on here have been processed by the high pressures in the Earth. On Pluto, it's more primitive.
Primitive, but far from pristine. Pluto is likely riddled with impact craters.
Impact craters are caused by asteroids or meteoroids impacting the surface. These are essentially pieces of the solar system that were never made into planet. Out of the surface of Pluto, you don't have an atmosphere, you don't have glaciers, you don't have wind, you don't have rain, you don't have erosion. And so the one dominant feature that you see on the surface is probably going to be a lot of impact craters.
Pluto's pockmarked surface undergoes a transformation as it orbits near the Sun. Under the additional heat, some of the frozen gases evaporate to form a temporary atmosphere. As Pluto recedes from the Sun, the gases freeze again and fall back down to the surface. For more than 75 years, this far-out icy object staked its claim as our 9th planet. So why is this little piece of snowy rock now causing such controversy? Why was Pluto kicked out of the solar system's most exclusive club? It's a quiet office at the Caltech campus in Pasadena, California. And it was from here that Pluto's demise as a planet began. But astronomer Mike Brown was never looking to destroy a planet. Equipped with Palomar Observatory's 48-inch telescope, he was seeking out Pluto-sized worlds at the far reaches of our solar system. And in 2005, he found one, an object bigger than Pluto, with its own moon, both orbiting the Sun.
When I first found this thing that's bigger than Pluto, I was looking through the images that the telescope had taken just before, and I found it in the screen. And did a very quick calculation, realized it was bigger than Pluto. And the very first thing I did was picked up the phone and called my wife and told her I just found a planet.
Indeed, if Pluto was a planet, and for more than 70 years it had been, then why wouldn't Brown's new world be considered a planet too?
I thought it was the 10th planet. For a long time, that's how I described it. It was a planet, and so I definitely felt like I had found the 10th planet. It's 5% bigger than Pluto. It's probably made out of the same materials on the inside, rock on the inside, ice on the outside, and a little thin layer of frost on the very outside that sometimes puffs up into an atmosphere and sometimes doesn't. Very similar to Pluto in that way. It has a moon that goes around it once every 16, 17 days. Pluto has a moon also, so it's, in many ways, I like to think of it as almost as twins. This is just the twin that just ate a little bit more when it was a baby, got a little bigger.
Brown considered naming his object Xena after TV's warrior princess, but eventually the name chosen was Eris, after the Greek goddess of discord. As it turned out, this name was entirely appropriate. The discovery kicked off a firestorm in the astronomical community. Now, the very definition of a planet was being hotly debated. Would Eris officially become our 10th planet, or would Pluto-sized objects be reevaluated as a whole? The argument was brought to the table in a 2006 meeting of the International Astronomical Union in Prague. a vote was taken, and the term planet was defined scientifically for the first time.
Those who are in favor of Resolution 6A, which introduces this new category of trans-Neptunian objects with Pluto as a prototype.
The recommendation is that we consider Pluto and other similar trans-Neptunian objects to be in a special class.
We didn't reconsider Pluto's status because we learned anything new about Pluto that made it less interesting.
Instead, scientists say the issue was addressed because they learned about Eris and other large Kuiper Belt objects. The Kuiper Belt is a 3.5 billion mile wide region in the outer solar system near Pluto. It's home to hundreds of thousands of icy objects, the first of which was discovered in 1992.
So historically, we've thought of the outer solar system where you've got Uranus and Neptune out there. There are these big gaseous planets, giant planets. And then just beyond that, you've got this little straggler, Pluto, that doesn't really fit into the picture. Well, now when we found all these other Kuiper Belt objects, what we're seeing is that maybe Pluto is really just the first of these many, many bodies of the Kuiper Belt that are this wide diversity of small icy bodies at the outer solar system.
The result of the IAU vote stipulated that a planet is a spherical object that orbits the Sun and clears out the neighborhood around its orbital path. Since the area around Pluto is full of other Kuiper Belt objects, the new definition would leave Clyde Tombaugh's great icy discovery out in the cold. Pluto's 76-year reign as the 9th planet was over. Our solar system would now officially consist of only 8 planets. Objects like Pluto and Eris were given the new classification, dwarf planets. Dwarf planets possess the same characteristics as planets, but do not have a clear orbital path. Under the new definition, Ceres, the largest asteroid in our solar system, is also a dwarf planet.
We have this new terminology because there's more things in the outer solar system than we used to think. It's like all you could see is one skyscraper, and now all of a sudden you have a whole city in front of you. We have a whole city full of objects in the outer solar system now.
The IAU vote was meant to settle the debate on what constitutes a planet, but many scientists refuse to accept the outcome.
There are astronomers who want it to be a planet still, and they just keep ripping those scabs off whenever possible, and they want to keep it fresh.
I believe Pluto is a planet. And I don't think the question of whether or not Pluto is a planet is really that important. Fundamentally, it's not a scientific question, it's a question of names. But in a way, in an odd way, it's become one of the highly visible subjects of planetary science.
People always ask whether Pluto is a planet or not. There's not one easy dividing line. There's not where you move from being a planet over here to being a planet over here to being not a planet over here, just like there's no real dividing line between a stone and a pebble. It's really more of a sociological question. It's a question of definitions of words rather than a question of science.
Although no longer officially a planet, scientific interest in Pluto hasn't waned. Even as the vote was being taken in Prague, a NASA spacecraft called New Horizons was already on its way to exploring this far-off world. The New Horizons mission will be the first spacecraft ever to visit Pluto.
By going to Pluto, studying Pluto, it's no longer a mission to a singular object, but it's actually a mission to one of a class of objects that we'll get to learn about.
But New Horizons needs to travel at warp speed, or a valuable research opportunity to study Pluto's atmosphere will be lost for at least the next 200 years. The New Horizons spacecraft is headed for a rendezvous with Pluto.
We have confirmation of spacecraft separation.
But scientists are trying to beat the clock. Because as Pluto recedes from the sun, its 62-year-long winter is coming. And when winter comes to Pluto, the dwarf planet's atmosphere will freeze and fall to the ground.
If it collapses too much, it might just be a lot less interesting. You might not have as interesting chemistry, and we want to know what the temperature and the composition and the structure and the winds on the atmosphere.